All right, guys, we're going to talk about uh, economics of building new facilities. I want you to pay more attention to kind of what I say than necessarily this lecture. This is a kind of a canned lecture. For the life of me, I cannot find the lecture I use in class, but I'll go through it, hit the high points enough for you guys to understand what we're talking about. So, understand that all cities think that when they build a new stadium, so for instance, Truist Park, that it's going to just change everything. That's going to attract new tourists. That it's going to revitalize old cities. And guys, it's really not the case. Um, in general, building new facilities is a disastrous idea, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll see kind of why that is. So you understand that it's well over $1 billion to build a new football stadium or a baseball stadium, really even a basketball arena now. And put that in context, it was about $750,000 to build Ebbets Field in 1913. And so something has changed, and what it is we're building these immaculate facilities that are only used for a handful of things, and we're doing it on taxpayer dollars, and we're really doing it for the wrong reason. So, new facilities, they could attract people to your city. You will see an uptick in attendance. Most places do, but that attendance quickly evaporates unless you're already a team that's well attended. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs. And so there's somewhat of a honeymoon effect. And it lasts about 10 years where you start to see higher attendance and it starts to fade down as the news starts to wear off of stadiums. And so understand that new stadiums don't generate new profit. The Yankees built their stadium and it drew fewer fans, okay, but they raised ticket prices. And they had to do that in order to be able to still make the amount of money that they did. And they made more money because, again, they're one of those products that people want to see. So, we have to start to look at what's the benefit to fans versus cities. So the claim is that cities get jobs, they get income, tax revenue, and, fans get to root for their team. And it's much easier to measure the effects for a city than it is for fans, because it's more intangible for fans. And so you have to try to make this jump when you're talking about fans of, well, am I going to become a Braves fan just because of Truist Park? Well, I want to argue probably not, unless you're talking about a kid who's becomes a fan because that's the first place they've attended a game. A new facility doesn't lead to more wins. Okay, it just doesn't. And so there's no way to put it up there. Bottom line is you can't even make the judgment that winning draws more fans, because it doesn't necessarily. The Marlins, prime example, have won multiple World Series and still almost have bottom of the rung attendance every single year. So you have to kind of look to see, well, what is that game doing for our city? And so a lot of people try to, and there is some truth to this, there is a pride about it. Something like the Red Sox Nation, stadiums become a place where people know their landmarks. Some way they might have some kind of aspirations or ties to ethnic type groups, and that's all good and well. But we're talking about money rather than feelings. And so, what we have to start to kind of figure out, guys, is that we really can't come up with a way to show that building a new facility is going to make more money for our city. Okay, it's just not. And the way you describe this is the way you understand this is kind of through externalities. So what you have to understand is that Some things you're going to hear when somebody says they're going to build a new stadium. Well, first thing is you're going to hear it's going to bring in new jobs. Well, that's somewhat true and not true. What you have to understand is when we build Mercedes-Benz or we build any other facility in Atlanta, there are jobs created. Those jobs are mostly temporary. Construction workers that come in and work, people who work on certain parts of the stadium. And a lot of times those people who do that aren't local to Atlanta. Now, obviously, there'll be some jobs created through concessions and things like that, but those are seasonal jobs. A lot of those jobs that are created that are temporary till the stadium's built aren't for people who are in the city. They're people who come from outside of the city in order to be able to have that job. And so, some negative type things, you're going to have traffic congestion, overcrowding. You're going to have pollution by having more people around. And that's negative to the people who live around there who didn't ask for that stadium to be there. There are some positive things. It can become a landmark and kind of help to revitalize parts of the city somewhat. But it's very little. It doesn't do a whole lot for it. Understand that when people start to build a stadium, a lot of it is built on tax dollars. So that money is coming from taxpayers to finance those stadiums. And even though that, people come to the game and they spend lots of money, that money really doesn't go to the city. And this is how I want to explain this. Think about if you're going to go to a ball game at Truist Park, and let's just say that you go down and you buy your tickets, and let's go say that you spend, $75 on food at the Battery. Well, some people will sit there and say, well, you're spending, that's $75 in economic impact because of the Battery. But in reality, if you were going to a ball game and there was no Battery, you would already spend that $75 somewhere else eating. So it's not because of that facility. A lot of times the direct impacts are overstated. Okay, meaning that, teams pay salaries, but the players often don't put that money back in their community because a lot of times they live other places. Okay, a lot of concession items that are sold are made other places. So there's just not a lot of ways of saying that this makes money. And even the direct benefits are small. I mean, Major League Baseball makes less revenue than Fruit of the Loom, who makes underwear. Okay, there are 3 cities who have 4 major sports in that cities, and they combine for somewhere between 0.5% to 1% of the total personal income. So having a new stadium is going to make a very small dent. And, most of the economic impact studies show that it just doesn't help anything. Okay. Again, there might be some things that you can claim from, people feeling better about the community pride. But as far as making money, you're not going to find it, guys.